everybody. I've had quite a few questions regarding tomorrow's English exam, so I thought what I'd do is just pull them all together and do a frequently asked questions video so that you can all see the responses that I've given to those questions. So let's have a look at question 1. So somebody asked, what's the difference between an adjective and a powerful adjective? Well, simply put, an adjective is powerful if it evokes a particular thought, image or feeling in the reader. So I think this question was asked with regards question 4 on the exam, where you have to do your language analysis. Obviously that's question 4 on the higher tier and question 3 on the foundation tier. Now, powerful adjectives are used to create vivid images in the reader's mind. So if you're going to pull out those powerful adjectives or powerful verbs for your language analysis, you need to really think about what images those words create or what feelings they evoke in the reader. So that's what you'd need to do in your suggestion and inference part of your PQE paragraphs, and you'd also need to include the effect on the reader of those words as well. So I also had this question. Do we have to write about the writer's use of language in question 1 on the higher tier and why they use certain words, what they're trying to show? So this is really a two-part question. So firstly, on the higher tier paper, question 1 is an 8-mark question, and you do not have to pick out the language, okay? You do not have to say what language features are used. It does not ask you about that. It asks you about what you've read and what you've learnt. So yes, you do have to think about the words that are used and what those words suggest and tell you, but you do not pull out any language features and analyse those language features, okay? Likewise, for the foundation paper, question 1A is just listing 4 things, and question 1B is just 2 PQE paragraphs, and again it's what is inferred or suggested by the words in the quotes that you've used. So no, you do not analyse language features for question 1 on either of the tiers. Somebody else asked this question. Obviously, you know, in the mark scheme it says about indicative content. What if you comment on something that is not there? So basically, the people that are marking your exam papers have a mark scheme in front of them, and they have the banding, and they also have a list of things that could be included in your answers, and that's called indicative content. Now, that gives them a guide as to what to give marks for. However, if you do actually have a valid answer that is not in that list, if it's actually within the source and you have suggested and inferred something that is correct, then they must award marks for it. So do not worry if you're thinking, oh my gosh, I've looked at the mark scheme and my answer isn't in there. If it is a correct answer and it makes sense, then the examiner must award a mark for it. At the end of the day, they could not write a mark scheme that was long enough to include every single tiny little thing within that source. So it's not an exhaustive list, it's just an indicator of the kinds of things that you could be using within your answers. Somebody else asked, how do you spot facts or opinions for source 3 on the higher tier? So we know that source 3 is an autobiographical or a biographical extract. We know that it's based on the thoughts and feelings of a person. Now, facts are really, really easy to find because they are always numbers, names, things that you can prove to be true. So when you are analysing source 3 for your language on the higher tier, then just look for those things. Anything that you could prove to be true is a fact. Now, with regards to opinions, look for people's thoughts and feelings. Now, we know that source 3, you have to answer on the thoughts and feelings of the character as well. So in essence, they are what that character feels or what their opinion is at that particular time. So easy peasy facts and opinions in source 3 for the higher tier. I said in my question 4 language comparison video that if I were to pick my top language features to compare, it would be facts, opinions and powerful adjectives and verbs. So look for those. They're really easy to find, and they're even easier to find within the news articles of Source 1 and Source 2. So yeah, facts, numbers, statistics, names, anything within there, anything that you can prove to be true. Somebody else asked me if I've got a video on how to manage time in the exam, for example looking for deforest techniques in the sources for question 4. Now on the foundation tier you will be analysing the language for question 3. Now what I would suggest is that when you are answering your other questions and highlighting within your reading time for those questions, I would suggest that you actually pull out your deforest or read my rules techniques at the same time, okay? So that you know in advance that you've got annotated notes really for your deforest techniques. And with regards to the timing, we know that effectively we've got 1.5 minutes per mark on the exam. So if it's an 8-mark question, you've got 12 minutes writing time. You need to really bear that in mind. You need to think about not spending too much time on the first reading questions because they're worth fewer marks. You need to make sure you give yourself plenty of time to answer those really chunky questions. Question 4 on the higher tier, the language comparison, and then question 3 and 4 on the foundation tier are both worth 12 marks. So you really need to make sure you allow yourself enough time to answer those fully because they are worth the most meaty marks on the exam. So definitely keep an eye on the time. There will be a clock in the exam. Keep checking back and forth to see how many minutes it's taken you to answer that question. And if need be, if it's getting beyond that time limit, then perhaps you might want to consider moving on to the next question. And then if you have got extra time, then you can always come back and add to the answers that you've already done. Somebody else asked, how many paragraphs do we need to write for question 5 and question 6? Now this is the same for both foundation and higher, who will have similar questions on the exam. Now we know we've got 25 minutes to answer question 5 and we've got 35 minutes to answer question 6. So I would aim for 5 paragraphs for question 5, including an introduction and conclusion. So introduction, 3 paragraphs after that and then a conclusion. And then for question 6 I would aim for 7 paragraphs including an intro and a conclusion. Obviously thinking about varying the length of your paragraphs as well within that time. You need to allow time to check your answer and plan it beforehand. So 5 minutes planning, 5 minutes checking. So both questions I would take 10 minutes off. So you've got 15 minutes writing time for question 5 and you've got 25 minutes writing time for question 6. So make sure that you stick to that timing. I'd also advise you to do question 6 before question 5. And the reason why I tell my students to do that is because it is worth more marks. So you can more easily rush question 5 if you need to. So definitely aim to do question 6 first before question 5. So those are the main questions that I've had regarding the English exam tomorrow. If you do have any last minute questions, then please do tweet me and I will aim to get back to you as soon as I can. Please go into that exam with all the confidence that you can have, because having confidence before the exam and feeling reassured, having done all your revision, you've done the best that you can and it will show in your answers. So I'd like to wish you the very best of luck. Let me know how you get on and I really do hope that my videos have helped you. Thanks for listening.